Hey guys, it's good to have you again today. I have another really fun guest that we're going to be talking to about his life. So I would like to introduce to you my friend, Travis Crotty. Travis, say hello to our viewers.
Mrs. Tillinghast, that's Deacon Travis Crotty.
That's right, Deacon Travis Crotty. It's so good to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a transitional deacon. That means I'll be ordained a priest, hopefully in June. That's when the date is set, despite all this craziness. So I've been in seminary for 9 years. I entered right out of high school, and I'm going to be a priest soon, so praise God. I have gone to seminary in 3 places, and I just got done with seminary in St. Louis. Still finished up with online classes and stuff.
That's fantastic. So 9 years in seminary, that's a really, really long time. So if you could just take us back to when you were in high school and kind of thinking about this, why did you decide you wanted to go to seminary?
Good question. So I went to the high school of girl basketball champions, Newell Fonda High School. And I grew up in Verina, Iowa, super, super tiny, small. And there was actually one time I was in Carroll. I was invited to come to a dinner with pastors, different priests around. They invited like 2 or 3 guys from their parish. And they asked us, they said, hey, you want to come to this dinner with the bishop? So I went, it was at the Garrigan Center at Holy Spirit. And there I saw more priests in one room than I'd ever seen before in my life. And I was so moved when they were asked to share just 1 or 2 joys of the priesthood. And so many of these older priests, they shared their whole life story of faithful, joyful service to Jesus and his church. And I was so filled with excitement and joy. I started thinking about it then, maybe my sophomore year of high school. But then it was through my junior and senior year, I started meeting with a young priest. And he taught me how to pray, taught me how to listen to what God was doing in my life and in my heart. I kind of became like a seminarian fanboy and like watched a bunch of videos on YouTube and followed their Facebook and all that stuff. And then I applied to college seminary right out of high school. And I went to Conception Seminary College in Northwest Missouri in the middle of nowhere.
And Travis, I don't know if you know this, but we took a field trip of all of the Kemper 8th graders to Conception and the Clyde Monastery just a few weeks ago. So we got to visit your alma mater.
Good. Yeah. It's a beautiful place.
So when you went to college seminary, did you know that you wanted to be a priest already, or were you still kind of thinking about it?
That's a good question. So I remember talking to one of my friends who was in college at the time, not in seminary. And she just came up to me when I was a freshman in college. And she said, so do you know? I said, do I know what? She said, do you know if you'll be a priest? And I was like, I don't know. So they really taught us in seminary to just take it like 1 year, 1 month, 1 day at a time, and not to kind of rush the process. But it's a process of discerning who God's made me to be and what he's calling me to do and what will bring me the most joy in serving him. So I was excited about the priesthood and I liked the idea of being a priest, but I didn't know if I was going to be a priest for sure. And there was lots of ups and downs throughout the years, overcoming a lot of doubts about myself or fears and things like that kind of like held me back from, can I really do this? Can I actually be a priest? To today when the Lord's blessed me with a lot of confidence in my vocation.
That's fantastic. So you talked about how those priests in Carroll told you about a joy of the priesthood. So do you have a joy of being a seminarian that you can share with us?
Yeah, sure. The biggest joy, so as a deacon, just like a permanent deacon in a parish, I've been a deacon for this past school year, and I've been assigned at the biggest parish in the state of Missouri in the Archdiocese of St. Louis. So there's 5,000 families of this parish, and I got to preach every weekend, almost every weekend, to thousands of parishioners. And I loved it. I loved it so much. And it's beautiful to see that God gave me a lot of gifts. I did like speech and improv and stuff in high school. And that was really beautiful. But to see that he uses those natural gifts that he's given me for the sake of his kingdom, to build up his kingdom and to build up his church through preaching the gospel. So that's been huge. But that's only this year. I think my biggest joy of just seminary time is the fraternity and the brotherhood. So I've made the best friends of my life. Some of the best men in the country come to seminary. And I've been able to be friends with them and pray with them and hang out with them, travel over the country and world with them, and really, grow in brotherhood with them.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that God has kind of given you gifts and talents that are naturally suited for, specifically, you mentioned preaching. But I bet there's a lot of your brother deacons and brother seminarians who weren't always comfortable talking in front of people.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about one guy in particular, my classmate. He is the smartest guy with tech stuff. So every class, any conference, everything that happens at the seminary, everybody says, hey, where's that guy? And they ask him to fix it, and he does. But he's a little on the shy side, and wasn't as confident in preaching. But to watch in our practice homilies from the first day to the last day, he just grew in leaps and bounds. And then to see him after the summer of being ordained, receiving the grace of ordination, and then being able to preach to the people, he just grew so much. So it's like the Lord always fills in valleys and lowers mountains in our lives. So it's like he fills up what you need, and he helps bring down the things that are in the way of what he's made me to do, made you to do. So yeah, I've seen that happen in some guys.
That's so, so cool. All different types of people are called to the priesthood, or even just to the seminary. And not everyone who's called to the seminary is necessarily called to be a priest, right?
Right.
You have lots of friends that throughout their time realized that they weren't actually called to be a priest?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the best part about seminary formation is that it really forms a man to understand who he is in God's eyes, right? First off, as a Christian man, and we're able to grow with our brothers. There's that phrase like iron sharpens iron, or Mother Teresa used to walk around with 2 pennies and rub them together, and the sisters were confused. What are you doing? And then she'd say they shine each other by the friction, right?
Oh, wow.
So just living in community with the brothers helps you grow as a man. And I have so many friends who've spent some time or a long time in seminary who came to a real place of freedom and realized that God wasn't calling them to that type of fatherhood. And they've gotten married, or they're still in a process of discernment, understanding what God's calling them to do. But all of them have told me that they are better men for going to seminary and asking God the bigger questions of, what do you want me to do in my life? What is your plan for me?
Awesome. So I have one more question for you before we log off. So what are you most looking forward to about being a priest in June?
Yeah, in a couple months. Wow. First of all, I'm back in Sioux City right now, but I'm so excited to be back home. I've been away from the Diocese of Sioux City for a while now, 9 years. I've come back in the summers, but I'm so excited to be back with the people who I know and who I love and who supported me all this way. But I cannot wait to celebrate the sacraments, to celebrate Mass the first time, but then every day of the rest of my life, and especially to hear confessions and to offer Jesus as absolution. That makes me so excited.
That's so awesome, Deacon Travis. It's been so good to have you. So thank you so much for being here today, and I hope we can talk to you more again soon. Viewers, be looking out for Deacon Travis. He'll be around our diocese a little bit more often now.
Yeah, see you soon.